Hello, my beautiful besties. How are we? I hope you're doing really well. So, I live in Florida, so August to September is not really a fall transition. I could be like everyone else and say that fall is my favorite time of year, but honestly, when I lived in the cold weather, fall was not my favorite time of year because it was just a reminder that we were about to hit winter. Now that I live in Florida, though, fall is super fun because it's still really hot outside, but you get to celebrate Halloween, my favorite holiday, as well as back to school and all of the fun things. So I thought I would do a little bit of a combo video today. It's going to be part fall recommendations of books to read during the autumn season, whether you're like me and you're in the scorching Florida heat, or you're in somewhere where it's actually fall weather and the leaves are changing color. So, I'm going to do some book recommendations for different types of fall readers, as well as a little bit of a TBR. So, it'll be a combo of books that I have read and have not read, but I'm hoping to. And I'm going to split it into different categories. Okay, so the first category is going to be dark academia. And for this, I have two recommendations and then one series that I'm hoping to read during the fall. The first book that, if you have not read this, everyone needs to read it. It's my favorite book of all time, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Just in case you have missed the book talk resurgence of this book that was actually written in the 90s, here's a quick summary. This follows a group of friends at a small liberal arts university in Vermont or New Hampshire, I don't know, New England, all the fall vibes. And this group of friends is involved in a killing. And you find that out on page one, that the group of friends is involved in killing one of their friends, and you find out why and the aftermath. I can't describe it any better than that, but if you have not read this, please go read it. Read the first 10 pages, and you can tell if you're going to like it or not. I fell in love with it already on page one. I just was laughing out loud, partly in shock and partly in amusement at the very first paragraph of the book. This is one that grips you from page one and is amazing all the way through. Cannot recommend it enough. And if you have not read The Secret History, fall is the perfect time to do it because it takes place in New England. And I do think it takes place in the fall and the winter as well. My second recommendation is Ace of Spades. I think this is a really cool YA book, and I don't often recommend YA books. This is a YA mystery thriller that deals with racial relations and racism and misogyny and all of the teenage drama. It follows two high school students who are some of the only Black students at a very elite high school in a nameless US city. And these two Black students come from very different backgrounds. One of them comes from a lower class, working class background with a single parent home who's gotten involved in a little bit of mixed up in drug dealing as a way to survive, as a coping mechanism, and also a way to make money. And on the other hand, the other Black student that this follows is very wealthy, comes from a very elite family, and is a popular girl and very well liked. These two students begin to get drawn together when a mysterious set of texts and emails circulates that reveal these two students' deepest, darkest secrets. And it turns out that there's more going on in this high school than meets the eye, and these two students are there for a reason. So if you have not read Ace of Spades, I highly recommend it. And the author has another book coming out soon as well, which I do plan to pick up. Now, on my TBR for the Dark Academia section will be the Truly Devious series. I have not read this yet. I feel like I'm the only person. I kind of resisted because it's YA, which is not my favorite. And also, was not the biggest fan of the Jennifer Lynn Barnes Inheritance Game series. I just thought it wasn't for me. I'm too old for it. I think I wasn't the target audience. So I've heard if you like that series, then you'll like Truly Devious. I did not like that series, but I still do want to read Truly Devious just because I've heard so much about it and I feel like I need to read it to see for myself. Okay, the next genre for the Halloween spooky time of year is, of course, horror. So, whether you like horror movies or horror books, here are a couple that I would recommend. So, I recently read House of Hunger, and I thought this book was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. I don't know what everyone else on the internet is talking about. It has lower ratings than some other books, but I thought it was fantastic and just such an astute social commentary. This book is a world in which it's kind of Victorian Gothic, and in which there are definitely a group of haves and a group of have-nots. And the haves live in the north and these vast estates, these vast mansions, and they hire what's called blood maids, which are indentured servants. And these elite, wealthy people drink the blood of their blood maids as a way to ward off disease, and also because it's very enjoyable in this world. So they're not actually vampires, they don't have sharp teeth, but they actually wear like gold caps on their teeth with points so that they can dig into their blood maids' necks or veins and and actually draw their blood. And drawing their blood makes a connection between the blood maid and the person drawing the blood. It's very creepy. If it sounds creepy, it is. It is horror. So definitely know that going in. It's not really supernatural. What I just described is pretty much the only paranormal element to it. There's nothing beyond that. But I will say, no, going in, this book is horror. I think a lot of the negative reviews were saying it made them queasy. Like, yes, it's supposed to make you queasy because it is not only a horror book, but there is a societal commentary subtext in this, and it's a commentary on women and violence against women, and a commentary on race and class and gender, and intersectionality of all of those. Um, so please know that going in, and it is definitely not an easy read. Like it is tough to read at times, but in my opinion, it is completely worth it. Yes, I definitely got queasy. I was driving while listening to the book on tape for this, and I had to actually pull over because my head was like, ooh, a little bit woozy. But to me, that was like the mark of a good book. That's what this book was trying to do. So I would say definitely go check out House of Hunger. Highly recommend. In the TBR section, I have to put Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. This has been on my TBR for months. Unfortunately, I have not gotten to it yet, but I think fall is the perfect time. This one is supernatural, and it's talking about some of the indigenous folklore and indigenous myths. There is a young indigenous woman who is investigating the murders or mysterious disappearances of several women on a reservation. And as she goes deeper and deeper and tries to find these women, she realizes that there's a lot more than meets the eye, and there's kind of mythology come to life in a very horrific way. I've heard great things about this. I just haven't gotten to it, and I think fall is the perfect time. The next category is mystery and thriller. What is Halloween? What is October? What is fall without a good mystery thriller? So, this is the one that I'm reading right now. It's called Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman. I'm not sure if I recommend it yet just because I'm not done with it. And so I don't know the twist at the end. I usually judge thrillers by whether I was able to guess the twist at the end and how early on in the book I was able to guess it. The later on in the book I guess it, the more I enjoy it. Or if I don't see the twist coming at all, that means I enjoyed the book a lot more. If the twist makes sense and doesn't come out of nowhere. Like, I love Pretty Little Liars, but like, we're not going to do like a twin twist or anything like that. Like, no. So, assuming this book is good in the end, I will recommend it. This book is about three high school students who grew up in a very wealthy area of Los Angeles, a very new money, in your face wealth type area of Los Angeles. And as a graduation present from high school, the parents give them a trip to Greece. The parents of one of the three best friends give them a trip to Greece. And only two of them come back. Three of them go to Greece, only two of them come back alive. The other two are accused of the third one's murder and eventually cleared. And so this book is dual timeline. The first timeline is in 2008, which is the year they graduated from high school, when they are going to Greece and you find out what happens. And then the second timeline is in 2018, 10 years later, where the two surviving friends have really drifted apart. One of them has really made a name for herself, kind of based on this tragedy. And she meets up with the other friend for the first time in years, and they have to kind of reckon with what happened 10 years before. So far so good. Interesting read, but I will tell you at the end if I really liked it or not. So on my TBR under the mystery or thriller section is a psychological thriller called Maidens of the Cave. This is book two of a series. I have not read the first one, but I've heard that you can read this one anyway. Maidens of the Cave by Lloyd Devereaux Richards was very kindly gifted to me by the publisher. So thank you so much to HarperCollins for gifting me this a beautiful copy. I really like the cover of this book. It's very pretty, and I just love when books have kind of a black and white edge, so that it fits in really well with the rest of my books. So thank you for that. This book was written by an older gentleman in New England writing, and he kind of got famous on Book Talk when his daughter recorded a series of videos of him a few years ago. And his first book ended up getting pretty good reviews. So I don't know much about this book other than it is a mystery psychological thriller, and it's about an FBI agent named Christine who returns in this pulse-pounding new thriller as she races to track down a serial killer who leaves a peculiar mark on his victims. All right, interesting. She'll have to confront her own inner demons to find the killer. Okay, sounds good, and I really look forward to reading this. Okay, the last category here for Halloween and fall type reading is vampires. I love a good vampire book, especially vampire romance. Can't get enough of them. I was never really a Twilight girly, but other than that, I've just absolutely loved vampires and vampire romance. So I've got two recommendations here, and both of them are really strong recommendations. The first is The Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. If you have not read this, it's a classic. I believe it was written in the 70s or 80s, and Anne Rice just recently passed away, but she was a prolific author who wrote a ton of vampire and vampire romance books. Start with The Interview with the Vampire. That's her most famous. And it just has all of the spooky vibes in New Orleans. Speaking of New Orleans, my TBR book for this section is also set in New Orleans, which is really cool. I just think New Orleans is the coolest place during October and during Halloween. I visited last year right before Halloween, and it was just so, so cool with all of the Gothic vibes and the architecture. It just fits right into the fall mood. So anyway, Interview with the Vampire follows a vampire who's over 200 years old, and so he has witnessed the rise of the United States. He lived in Louisiana Territory when it was owned by the French prior to the Louisiana Purchase. And so you hear about the 1700s, 1800s, and 1900s, his life, his regrets, his struggles with his humanity versus his vampire nature. It's a fast read. It's definitely kind of like a pop culture icon, so I would highly recommend it. And then secondly, on my recommendations is a brand new book that I just read. It's called Court of the Undying Seasons. I gave this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I have not seen much on Book Talk about it, even though it just came out, but please do pick this up if you have any interest in YA vampire romance whatsoever. I think this book is just so good, and it's not getting the hype that it deserves. So I want to hype it up. Me and all of my 10 followers, I definitely want to hype up this book. So this book follows Finn, and in this world, vampires sort of are like overlords. Like they're there and people know about them, but they're not really involved in everyday life. And the vampires have a court with sort of 5 houses, one house for each of the seasons, and then one called the Court of the Undying Seasons, I believe. Um, anyway, there's a fifth nameless house. So there's 4 houses for each of the seasons, and then one nameless house as well. And every year, the vampires go into the human villages and they select a few human teenagers that they want to make into vampires. And they bring these human children to their courts, and they basically train them. These children go to school and learn how to be a vampire and eventually convert into being a vampire. There's a lot to say here, but just think Interview with a Vampire meets Harry Potter. Um, all of the Hogwarts vibes. This is like Hogwarts for learning how to be a vampire. And Finn is just such a compelling character. And there are a lot of characters that are kind of morally gray and you're not sure where they stand or if they're good or they're bad. There is a mystery involved, which was kind of a subplot. There's also a subplot of Finn trying to get revenge. You find this out in chapter 1. Finn is actually trying to get revenge for her mother. Finn's mother gave birth to Finn as a teenager, and then after giving birth to Finn, the mother was selected by the vampires and taken away to a vampire court, and she was never heard from again. So part of this is Finn trying to figure out what happened to her mother, and also trying to get revenge on the vampires for taking her mother away from her. There's so much more to say about this book. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was super compelling. There's a romance element to it that's really interesting as well. And I believe there will be a sequel to this because it definitely ends on a cliffhanger. So just know that going in. But yeah, I thought this one was fantastic. I say I don't like YA, but I've had so many YA recommendations in this. Anyway, just go read Court of the Undying Seasons. Okay, this is on my TBR for the fall. This is called Blood Debts. It came out earlier in 2023. And like I said earlier, it also takes place in New Orleans, which is so cool. I love New Orleans. This book is a YA. I believe it's a bit of a fantasy, but more so a mystery and a magical fantasy mystery book. And this follows two families who are being targeted. They're magical families on a council for magical families in New Orleans, and their names are, let's see, I think Christina and Clement. Yeah, Clement and Christina Trudeau, the 16-year-old twin heirs to the powerful, magical, dethroned family. And then they discover that their mother is cursed and they have to go break the curse. So it's a little bit of like warring families, a little bit of mystery of where the curse came from. And I'm excited to read this one. This is my, I don't think it's vampires, but anyway, my cozy, like magical category. So that is going to be it for my fall recommendations and TBR. I hope you enjoyed. What's your favorite fall book? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love it if you like and subscribe. That really helps me a lot. And I will be back soon with some more videos for you. Thanks. Bye.